to hang with the young bucks. I need to bring the power of the sun into my hobby space.
Listen up, Umi. This is a podcast with the most ducker. This is Forge the Narrative.
Hello and welcome everyone to Forge the Narrative. My name is Paul, your host for the LL Sauce podcast. I'm joined by Adam Camilleri.
Evening, everybody.
Tanya Gates and Red Powell.
Hey, everybody.
Hello.
What is happening?
Are you asking us?
I'm still recovering from LVO. I don't know about anybody else.
I just want to know what's happening at everyone's computer desk or car or whatever. We had the pre-show. I know what's going on with y'all.
Yeah.
I don't know. My mic wasn't working, so I felt like I was being ignored for most of the pre-show.
Oh, we would really love to start. Where's Red?
I am. So I just spent a couple of days playing with the Dice Check guys. Did a couple of shows with them.
Nice.
In San Marcos near San Diego. Now I'm in San Francisco. I'm going to be doing a game with the Tabletop Titans guys this next weekend. So I'm living it up.
Look
just
at you.
Checking out all my favorite channels and
Jet setting.
I'm going to get it handed to me by Tao with my Dark Angels. I had to censor myself.
Got to meet those folks for the first time in person at the LVO this past a couple of weeks. Great folks. Great
yeah, I literally LVO is like my favorite. Like it's all encompassing event. I do a little bit of wheeling and dealing. I meet some people I've always wanted to meet. I eat some awesome food. I work butt off. I get very little sleep. It's like the every event for me in one. Yep. It's so cool.
Yep. Next one, big one coming up is going to be Adapticon, I think, for most people. And that is Adapticon. And I've said this a bunch, but if you're a new listener or have not heard the spiel before, Adapticon is actually the closest thing to a convention that I'm used to in our hobby. And you know, if you feel like it's the right thing for you to make it, you don't want to miss it, and you're going to get that similar experience. Going to meet lots of people, lots of vendors, lots of Warhammer, lots of war games in general being played all over the place. It's not just a single hall type of thing. It's like it's 5,000-6,000 people. And in normal years, I don't know what's going to be like this time, but the really closest thing to a convention that we can have, and you don't want to miss it. You don't want to miss any of these things. But that's the next. Adapticon's the next one coming up.
Yeah, I can't wait. I've never been to Adapticon, but it's been one of those ones on my list that I've always wanted to go to.
Love it. Cannot wait. I'll be there, of course, hanging out. Yeah, looking forward to it. Yeah, speaking of Tal, you mentioned Tal. We do have to talk about some army lists at some point. Maybe we'll do that towards the back half of the show, because while we're chatting, we came up with, or it kind of came to light that we all we have some like-minded folks on the show. We enjoy the hobby in very similar ways, but we also enjoy the hobby in very unique ways, at least to people on the show. And we were talking about some friends of ours and buddies that even have different unique ways to enjoy the hobby, and how it all kind of comes together, and how they're all cool. I guess we need to elaborate on that a little bit.
Yeah. So I was sort of chatting to some friends about I guess it's kind of like the idea of like hobby shame or hobby guilt if you don't enjoy all of the aspects of the hobby.
Like a personal thing, it's you start to build up this inside yourself because you are not enjoying the hobby the same way as either a different peer group or other people might, or whatever, or your perception of how they do.
Right. So maybe all your friends paint and you just really don't like painting, so you kind of end up feeling a little bit guilty about that. Or in my group, a lot of people love kit bashing, and I have no desire to kit bash anything ever.
Oh, come on.
No peer pressure. Thank you very much. So, and there were times in the past that I felt a little bit guilty about that, and I did try kit bashing a few things, and it was okay. They weren't great. And yeah, so this came up in my friend group, and I am just so curious to see if anybody else ever feels these kind of weird conflicting feelings.
In my mind, there's a couple of different things happening here. I'm somewhere. I came into this hobby as a hobbyist, not a gamer, not a player. And now I've kind of turned into the player, the gamer, and then the hobbyist on the other side of it. And it's interesting. Like I have groups of friends and groups of peers who I started this hobby with. People who taught me how to paint, like essentially, like people I sat around a painting table with and got to know, and they've taught me. It's. I'm just going to ask, how many different group chats are you guys in that are hobby related?
Oh yeah, several.
Yeah.
Man, yeah.
Yeah. So for me, I'm in about 9. And I don't feel like
active chats, active like different groups or whatever.
Yeah, I actively chat in like not all of these, but like more than half, like 5 or 6 of these, I chat in like most days, and if not, I keep up to date with what's going on. Like I have a group that is Horus Heresy related. I have a group that's still fantasy related, as in Old World. And then I have like just 40k groups out the wazoo, Discords, Facebook groups, and whatnot. And all of them enjoy the hobby in different ways. The Horus Heresy one's mostly like hobby related. There's a lot of talking about who's got this cool sculpt and how we're going to make this character from the lore, and talking about the last book we read and losing our minds like that. And then I've got everything in between. I've got ultra competitive, like don't talk about anything that you don't think is the best list in the game stuff, to what do you guys think about me taking, I'm going to start GSC. What should I do to get started with that faction? Blah, 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 blah. And I really think there's no wrong way to do it. The only wrong way to do it is to kind of be close-minded, I think.
You mean as far as like,
which is
not accepting this? I think though that maybe what we're talking about is maybe those personal feelings though, not of maybe thinking someone else is not enjoying the hobby the way they should, but maybe you're feeling some guilt or some shame because you're not in liking the same thing the same way as, like, say I do or you do.
That's a good way of putting it.
I think that it's important though to recognize up front that nobody likes losing, right?
That's true.
I think that there's an important undercurrent to that, because of there's impacts to that and how we go about playing, whether you're playing Crusade or you're playing for the hobby and all these other interests we just highlighted. One thing that people pretty much collectively agree on is that they don't like to lose. And so to a certain extent, for all the events that occur, there's always going to be someone who makes it to the top, and then there's a lot of other people who don't, right? And that's just something that goes along with it, and some people accept it and move through it a lot better than others. And that, I do think that does influence different parts or ways in how people go about the hobby. I can tell you, like, from my own position, I mean, I'm by no means nearly as good of a hobbyist from what a lot of work I've seen, that you all do, and from what others do, but I still love to put myself into it, to the extent that I don't like buying other people's painted stuff. If I'm going to buy secondhand models, I really like, if I do, I end up stripping them almost usually, because I want my own paint job, even as bad as it is on there. Mm-hmm. And I really is something for me to have my own characters and have my own build to it. I also have a hard time using storyline characters or storyline armies, like Ultramarines or what have you. It took me something for Horus Heresy for me to really latch on to a specific legion, because it felt off to make up my own legion, because I know you could, but it just didn't work out for me. And so to buy into Night Lords and Iron Warriors, it took something for me to get there. And so, like, enjoying it,
like a really strong narrative that you, or something,
right?
Like, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. And so, so when it comes down to it, I mean, playing Necrons or playing Khorne, which is what I've tried to mainline into LVO in previous years. With Khorne, there was a point where I was running a bunch of Bloodthirsters, which was super fun, but at the same time, I admit that I worked through struggling with the idea that I was going to lose a lot. It was fun, and sometimes it was swingy to the extent that I could do well, but at the other times, I mean, people knew how to take out 3 Bloodthirsters pretty well. It was fun to see the Khorne Berserkers overwhelm the field sometimes, but for the most, again, I spent a lot of my time at the last LVO, not this most recent, but the one before that, and I probably could have said the same thing this last time with I'm a level 4 NPC. I'm gonna charge at you, and you just need to play tower defense and shoot. Right? That's all you got to do. Because
whatever in Gauntlet, you're the orcs or the ghost or whatever that just
yeah. it's coming. The horde is coming, and all you got to do is shoot me off the field, right? But it took some time of getting through that, and then acknowledging it within myself as far as like where I wanted to be in the hobby, and that was what I enjoyed doing, and I some pride in my own paint job and how I'd gone about it, and the army itself, and that I was really giving everything I could to make it as well as I could, and that ultimately, again, I was having these great games with people, regardless of the fact that I was winning or losing. And I'm by no means going to say that I like ascended to some kind of like, nirvana of content with how I'm playing. But I tell you what, this last LVO running Gaunt's Ghosts, I wouldn't change it for the world. I'd do it all over again, knowing that I was going to get plastered there, along the way, in the amazing games that I had with people. And so it's really been an awesome journey to get to that point and really be able to appreciate it.
And I'm sure
I know that
people.
Was a very roundabout answer.
Yeah, no, in peer groups that are pressing like, oh, you should never. That's inefficient. It's inefficient. Why are you taking? You're going to play in a tournament. You need to do it. You need to enjoy it this way, or you are wrong. I mean, I'm paraphrasing a conversation, but I have to imagine that at least some of these chats that is part of the discussion.
Right. Yeah.
And it's funny that you bring up like even your different play style, the way that you approach the game. Sometimes you feel guilty about. At least I feel like when I was playing Guard, I tried really really hard to like figure out the faction, to figure out how to play it, and figure out how it worked and all of that. And I absolutely love Guard still, but with Custodes, I just made a list with the models that I had. It's not optimized at all. And like taking a step back from that like ultra competitive mindset for me right now, if this would have been like a year ago, I think that I would have felt extremely like guilty or shameful about showing up to my super competitive meta with this like untuned list. But right now, I think that I'm realizing that I'm having a lot more fun not worrying about all that stuff. Like just going into the game and playing the best that I can with the models that I have. It's been a lot more fun than I've had in a really long time playing this game. So leaving all that shame behind for me is been actually quite beneficial in the short term here.
I like that. You mentioned kit bashing earlier, and my shame is that I have no ability to convert anything, but I can kit bash. Like I can look at bits and I can be like, oh, that goes really well, or I understand that you have to kind of shave off a little bit to make the arm really attach right, or whatever. There's this much of an elbow sticking out of that kit, so you have to cut this part off. I can put that together, but I could not sculpt an arm out of green stuff or nothing or whatever. So I leaned into it and started this like a Facebook group just only about kit bashing, of just really literally putting together kits and taking away that stigma of having to convert something. Basically just rearranging parts is okay if that's the way you want to participate with that, those effects.
Interesting. I don't know if you guys are happy to turn this conversation this way. If you're new to the hobby, or if there's a part of this community or hobby that you don't feel especially well versed in, or let's just go for it from a brand new perspective. How would you go about experiencing all portions of it thoroughly enough to make up your mind?
Now, the point we've talked about in the past is making sure you don't get lost in comparison to something else, like someone that's put in the 10,000 hours or whatever. They're a master at it. You're not. You just started. You just bought your first brush, and I hate to break it to you, it's probably the wrong size brush. So you're not going to be at the same spot. You're going to see people that also just jumped into it the first time, and they're already a better painter than you.
Really, like so much of it is about the journey, right? I mean, it's where you start, where you are along the way, and everything there in between. Because again, this is look at what we're doing right now. There is a social aspect to this, and it is no one's going on this alone, right? And we all start somewhere, and some of us start in different places than others, and that's okay. And just really coming to that, and the more you engage with folks and you see where they're at and where they've come from and where they're going, I think it helps provide a lot of perspective, which is extremely helpful in not, at least for me, not beating myself up over different aspects of it. it's something to it that you could aspire to be the best in any regard, but there's just so many people out there that may have been on the journey longer than you that it's going to take time for engagement and practice and effort in one aspect of the hobby or another or all of them to really get there. And it's really cool to see how some folks in their journeys and how it's brought them along in different aspects and really see it develop over time.
I mean, being real honest with yourself too helps.
Yeah,
which is very
for sure.
difficult because sometimes I think it's easy for us to get frustrated, or something can put us on a path of kind of mentally sabotaging ourselves from either being content or getting to the next stage in the speed at which we want.
For sure.
Which is tough.
Yeah, totally agree with that. And the game is on a bit of a trajectory now. Like we're on the upward trend of more and more people joining this thing. I mean, I just watched a YouTube chat with Andy Serkis, like who played Gollum, and
oh my gosh, wasn't that amazing?
Phenomenal. I was like, oh, holy crap, this is
watching him
so
paint
cool.
models. It's just, I mean, it's one of those. It was awesome. That was great.
Yeah, it's like undeniable Warhammer fantasy. The Warhammer community, 40k, AOS, all the other games. It's on an upward trajectory, especially in the realms of like popular culture and people even knowing about it, awareness of it. So it's really important. I don't know, like you guys have hit the nail on the head about the avoiding comparison, not getting dragged into thinking you have to be this, be that, or do anything in between.
Well, this is a personal, like a relationship that you are developing. Like this is a hobby, something to distract you from whatever it is you have going on. I mean, I mean, don't get me wrong, this could be life. This is life for some of us, you know what I mean? But still, it is a distraction from other things, and it's supposed to be fun. And if you lose sight of that fun, your fun could be becoming the best person or best player in the world. Your fun could be becoming winning a golden demon. Like you can strive, and that could be part of it. I mean, you should figure out ways to put some brakes on if that's not working, and so you don't have it completely attached to one thing or another. Your enjoyment completely detached to one aspect or another. But I think to answer your question and not try to skirt around it, is never lose sight that this is supposed to be fun.
Yeah. Literally, unless you're trying to make a living out of this game, which is something that very few people can do. And see, this is the thing. Like people, for the longest time, and this is a bit of a stigma, I suppose, around professional players or professional standard players, people who actually play the game at such a level that they can do such things. But we've had professional painters and commission painters forever. Why is it so wrong that we have professional players now?
Oh, we don't. Yeah, I don't see anything wrong with that at all. I mean, especially exactly like coaching or whatever. If that's something, if someone wants to purchase that service, and someone wants to offer that service, then by all means. But we're talking about like this. I think more just the people that engage with this hobby. It's their 1 hour a week that they get to sit down and unplug from their normal monitor and stare at another monitor or listen to their audiobook or one of those things. So I think this is the people that are on that path of making it their life. They know what the road that they're laying out for, they're paving for themselves, I think. But I think for the people that only get one game a month or aren't doing, have to compromise on when they and how they engage with the hobby. I don't know. I feel like this is, just like, it's okay. A little reassurance, this is the same, some of the same things that every single one of us struggle with.
Something interesting today, I mean, and it goes into this, right, is that, I mean, as people start to build interest into it, and there's folks that they walk into this hobby, whether they see it, something as far flung as Barnes and Noble, where they sell some of the introduction games, or you see it at an event, or you get into it with friends or what have you. I mean, I was talking to someone today, at work, and we were small conversation, small talk, and asked them what they did for a hobby, and they said, "Well, I write science fiction, fantasy stuff," and they admittedly they were like reluctant to talk about it, and I just threw it out there. I was like, well, I mean, because they're like, just nerd stuff like that.
Oh, it can't be any worse than Warhammer.
I was like, hey man, you're talking to someone who was just literally, in Vegas 2 weeks ago playing tabletop wargaming with painted armies with hundreds of people. Like you don't need to be reluctant to talk about what you enjoy doing, and if that's what you want to do, like more power to you. It's awesome, and that's where a lot of this aspect is. If that's what you enjoy doing and you're proud of what you're accomplishing and you enjoy engaging with people, I think that's all the positive energy you need to continue and keep doing it and improve upon it over time.
Dude, we're going deep.
Enjoy it along the way.
Almost like I'm willing to bet that no matter where you work, some high percentage of them are gamers, and they're all afraid to admit it because they're afraid of everyone else knowing that they're a gamer. When like most of your conversations, if like, hey, how's the weather? Did you catch that game or whatever last night? Oh, could be about how many sixes you rolled to ace your opponent.
Oh yeah.
I don't work at my part-time job anymore, but my bosses there were like hardcore like tabletop role-playing game people. So they played this, they are working on like a 20-year Rifts game right now. And they'd always be like, oh man, let me tell you about this sweet combat that we did this weekend. And I'm like all in for it. Like, yeah, like tell me all about it. Yeah. I just get excited when people are excited about what they do, and I think that excitement is infectious.
Well, I know we're jumping around, but it's all related. About we're talking about that we know somebody that likes to just collect the boxes or art from Warhammer, and not necessarily interact with the figures, and I'm cool with that.
Yeah,
it's not Paul's alter ego, but there is an alter ego of Paul where he does do this, and he just owns all Mephiston and Sanguinius renated paraphernalia, like anything that even looks like them.
Some call it a shrine. Some call it.
I was going to say he's got a shrine.
It tells a story. I know people that read the books that have they will never ever buy a miniature and paint it. It's not their part, but they could sit down and have a conversation about something Warhammer, with people, and that's completely okay.
And that is the coolest thing about this hobby for me, is that there's room for everybody. Like you don't have to like everything. You can just like what you like, and that's totally awesome.
Yeah, and I think you can find people that dig it in the same way that you do. And this is not about, at least I don't think we're talking about, like peer pressure into making sure that other people like it or like it the way you do or whatever. But it's more of like it's just okay for you to like it the way you like it. And there are probably more people out there that like it the same way than you even know about. Maybe that's it. I'm just trying to figure out, the way that, because I don't want to come off as like preachy or whatever, because that's not the thing. It's more of just accepting like this is a big hobby. There's a lot of room for just about any way to enjoy it you want. And then when you have like novels and art and miniatures and painting and playing and narrative and there's just computer games. Like I'm sure we all know.
Forget about the computer games.
I'm willing to bet we know people that played Dawn of War and like it was their religion and have never built a model or read a book. Well, I'm sure they've read a book, just not read Warhammer books.
Nice save.
People that can't read can play the computer.
Nice.
So I think it's cool. It was neat that this kind of spawned from different conversations, but you see this kind of manifest itself on social media and stuff and I know it's easy to kind of go down a rabbit hole and people can pile on or whatever, but I think it's just nice to explore this a little bit.
It's funny that you bring up social media, because when I'm on social media is when I feel these feelings from other people, right? Not their judgment on me, but their judgment on themselves. And I'm not sure if something about social media makes us feel like we need to experience the hobby the same as other people are on social media.
That's an interesting question. Yeah, and I think that's even easier. Is like when we know that most people only post their highlight reel. They don't post some of the mediocre stuff. I was actually having the conversation with folks not that long ago. I was like, I'm probably never going to post the fact that my wife and I hung out for an hour trying to figure out what show to watch, and then we just decided to go out and order something to eat instead of watch, whatever it is we were set out to do. Or we debated for 20 minutes whether or not we were going to start The Expanse, and we never did. That kind of.
I've got a question for you guys that I like to ask people. If you could give yourself advice to your younger self, like if you go back in time before you started playing this hobby, what advice would you give to younger you?
Just roll sixes. Just roll sixes.
Just roll sixes, baby. Who wants to start?
I guess I will start. Because I haven't been in this hobby as long as you, so it's probably a little fresher in my mind.
So nothing about first or second edition. You don't.
No, this is definitely end of 7th edition. However, my advice to I don't want to say young Tanya because I was still like middle 20s, would be to not give those misogynistic men on the internet any amount of your time or sparkle.
Nice.
Because let me tell you, back in 2012 and 2013, the internet spaces for Warhammer were very, very unkind to women. And it made me not want to share my hobby with anybody for like 6 or 7 years.
Oh, I hear that.
I'm very sorry to hear.
Yeah, so that would be my advice. It's just to do your own thing and don't care about the haters.
That's actually great advice.
Yeah, it is. Red, Paul, what you got?
That's
Go
a good
for it,
question.
Paul.
I don't know. It's been so long. I don't even.
Mephiston Red rattle cans, stock up.
Yeah.
I stock in Mephiston Red.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. See what else. It really, like paint the same thing I give the advice that I give now. It's like paint the connective hoses on your Space Marines. Your Marines do not look as good as they could without them. But no, I think you're talking a little bit deeper than that. This is a little service level. Man, I gotta think about that for a second.
As deep as you like, man.
Yeah, I gotta think.
I just went deep because I'm in like deep introspection mode. I was literally journaling about this before we hit the green room.
So poignant to you.
Yeah.
That's fair.
I think I would try to travel sooner
for events and
yeah, because it was the thing before I started, and write more. I think I would write more. I would have started. I mean, it wouldn't. Blogging, that wasn't anything. I would have written articles sooner. I'm not saying I would have been good at it, by the way. Just yeah. But I think I would have liked to document it more, take more pictures. So
I think for me, and I mean, it kind of plays into my efforts with the U.S. Army esports team is. It was always something I was doing off to the side, and I think that there were more opportunities to make it more of a group effort and what it is similar to what it is now, right? There's some leverage and support. Clearly, there's official, Army support to the U.S. Army esports team as its sole sponsor, and I kind of wish that I had leveraged, what is out there now. I feel like the social media platforms, there's just so much more. There was the potential back then still to even do like what we have now. I think that the community would have been receptive to it. I think that there it could have made for a good launching point. I didn't have to wait for the official support necessarily to tap into the community as I have now.
Nice. What you got?
Beautiful. Literally, I would tell myself to play Deathcore Krieg over Cadia. So,
oh right, yeah.
When I first started the game, my first actual army was Tempestus Scions, because that's when I started 40k, because that was fantasy was still around and 40k was like my side hustle. But then I jumped both feet into Guard, and I tossed up, because I was so new to the game as a whole. I was very afraid to do what's extremely expensive Forge World resin in Australian dollars. And I would tell myself, nah, just be brave. You'll figure it out as you go. Like maybe you'll stuff up 5 models out of 10, and that's just freaking fine. Like stuffing up 5 models, not a big deal. And I tell myself, just be brave, jump in, go for it. You've got nothing to be scared of.
Yeah, nice.
And yeah, I'd have a massive Deathcore army instead of a massive Cadian army, and guess what? Yeah, I've got heaps of Forge World upgrade sprues on my Cadian. So I ended up doing the Forge World anyway. It was crazy. Yeah.
I'm going to condense my answer to just take more pictures.
Nice. I like that.
I like that too, and that's actually why I started my Instagram account originally, was so that it would be like a photo diary of my hobby. And it quickly turned into something bigger than that.
let's take a break. This has been a good discussion. So thanks for teeing it up, and thanks for participating. And I'd love to hear people's what they think. I know this is a little bit more introspective than we know. We're not necessarily reviewing the hotness or whatever at this moment, but I'd love to hear what people think and if they've experienced it or overcome it. I'd like to hear that too. It's maybe some tips or anything that might have internalized now that you're thinking about it, is to kind of get you that next leap of being able to enjoy things the way being content. Love to hear about it. We will see you in a second.
FTN is brought to you by Discount Games Inc. Please visit them at www.discountgamesinc.com. And don't forget to ask Jay about ways to save even more on your hobby projects.
Hey everybody, we are back. Thank you so much for checking out our sponsors. Still got everybody here. Yeah, thanks for hanging out that last segment. That was cool. I think it was kind of cool to verbalize some of that stuff.
It's awesome. It's actually, I think it's a core aspect of this, and that I wish people would take the time to reflect on. I mean, it goes in a lot of different directions, but a lot of cases, some of the things that I think hurt the hobby, and I don't want to dwell on this by too much, but competitive nature in the negative end of the spectrum, and what I've talked about it before, but when you talk about air guys and rumsuck, right, the hankering for glory, or the desire for glory, the greed for self-recognition and that kind of stuff. I'm not saying it's a super prevalent issue in the community by any means, but quite often it is that unfortunate sensation that rises up, especially in competition, that can often lead to the not feeling well about something, or taking away from the experience of someone. And so it's talking about all these other things that bring joy and happiness to us in our hobby is important to focus on, and make sure that we're using that to kind of override some of those inherently human aspects that we're going to see in the game regardless.
What's the "This does not spark joy" lady?
I know you're talking about.
Joy. Yeah. I know that meme. I don't know who did it, but I find it amusingly applicable.
Speaking of sparking joy, and I got a new hobby light today, and it's like 23 inches wide and sheds quite a bit of light because I started to need it.
The eyes not what they used to be.
I was going to say something about eyes and getting older. There you go.
To hang with the young bucks, I need to bring the power of the sun into my hobby space.
Oh man, if everybody could see how cheap and cheerful my hobby space is. Yeah, I spend so much money on models and paint that everything else is cheap.
Oh, hey, if it works, it works.
I feel the same way. I relate to that notion.
Yeah. So I have a pendulum light that just plugs into the wall above my hobby desk, with a $1 China ball paper lantern over it. And then I bought an expensive $30 LED light bulb. So all in all, it was less than $40 for my painting light.
The good light's all you need. The lamp that I had before was just a tiny desk lamp, more ornamental than anything. And so I got, basically a 4-inch cone to paint in.
Oh no, been there.
So I you know what? Let's just everyone raves about this one. Let me just go ahead and get it and see if it makes a difference. And it certainly gives me larger than a 4-inch cylinder to paint in.
Hey, you know what? You could live stream your painting because you are trained to keep your model in line of sight.
Everything's in frame.
Yeah.
It really was. It's just all the different. I'd explored every single angle within that cylinder, that beam. Now I'm we'll see how it goes. But more to come. Hopefully my pictures will improve on at Warmaster_TPM. But we're going to talk about army lists. I know we just talked about how competition is not necessarily the way, but and then but at the same time, efficiency's cool. Some direction.
So don't get me wrong, Paul. The competition leads to some really great engagement, and as long as it's wielded appropriately and there's the right amount of respect amongst people, it is an enabler. It can exponentially improve a relationship, and that's the awesome part about being able to engage. And so, for all I said, there's a dark side to it, but don't let it take away. Competition is absolutely crucial, and it is part of the hobby for many of us.
Yeah, I love the way you said that part. I mean, I don't know if I completely agree with the dark side part of it, other than we can get consumed fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate. You know. You can get consumed by anything and take it down, to an extreme that is off-putting or whatever. It could be to different people that are not in that same space or whatever. But I do like a lot of what you just said there. And yeah, that could be an enabler for amazing things. But we talk about one of some of the topics and why we talk about things on the show is that how to get to that certain level of efficiency, and maybe seeing what's working for other folks. Seeing some value buys or whatever within codexes and stuff like that. But sometimes it's just also maybe you just want to have enough on the table of some good stuff that works, synergizes well together, to win more games than you lose, or win more games than you won the last month, which could be one,
Yeah.
I mean, maybe you just want to make your games a little bit closer as well.
Yeah.
Everybody's goals are different, but looking at your list from a place of efficiency can help you reach those goals.
And it also, again, just in the spirit of everything, I completely respect folks that just really want to put a singular how do I make this model work in an army list? That's another great, I will say, one over the years. And look, I'm getting a little bit reflective, as we come up upon the 9th year of the show. I know it's a long time. We're like, that's like 407 in podcast years. But one of the hallmarks we get is people get right in and they I'd like some help with an army list, and I always ask them, are we trying to make a model decision here? Are we trying to work with just the collection that you have? Are you trying to just really get this land raider on the table or whatever? I mean, like, what are we shooting for here? Because that's going to tailor how we talk about it. So I know there's lots of different reasons to talk about army lists, but now we're going to talk about is like what's working for folks, what's working for Gene Stealer cults, what's working for Custodes, and what's gonna work for Tau, since they're the most recent things.
Tau is an amazing book. Just gonna say it flat out. And it's interesting. Well, I feel like the last 3 books by G-Dub, that being GSC, Custodes, and now Tau, are some of the most well fleshed out, internally balanced books I've ever seen.
Nice.
I think they are beautifully crafted things, and I don't think there is a truly bad option in them. You just pick which build you want to go, and you can make just about near everything work, which is extremely exciting. So it doesn't really matter what your collection is. Of course, there's always going to be a best build, or this is the best build into this. This is the best thing to use if you're playing.
Well, you can build no fat list. You can look at a codex and build there's nothing in here. There's no vanity units in here. It's just all streamlined.
I love that you and me say that term. That's like our term, the no fat build. Hopefully that takes off, because that doesn't mean you're making the most. That doesn't mean you're making the most efficient thing possible. It just means you're making everything you're taking has a purpose to it. Everything is thought out. Doesn't have to be the best thing, but it's there to do a specific thing, and there's something that you like or you want. So the build for purpose, the no fat options. And in this realm of keto and soy and oat milks and all this stuff, it's a fun term.
Well, people were all hot on the hammerheads, and I don't know that they're making it into the list. I think we talk about efficiency and maybe some synergy. Have you seen people going with the hammerheads?
I don't believe the hammerhead's the way to go. I mean, until G-Dub puts out an FAQ saying long strike cannot be bodyguarded, long strike makes the cut. just because, like,
hey, character's character, man.
You can bodyguard long strike. It's the thing. Yeah. So until then, I think he is. He's an auto include, or he's very close to making the cut for just about every list. And in addition, I also really, really like so much of that book. One of the things I like the most is they've made the basic troops feel really good. The breacher teams and the strike teams feel incredible. So your traditional Fire Warrior varieties both feel absolutely phenomenal.
And I think you were onto something when we did the review, is that Devilfish are going to be in a lot of people's list.
Oh, Fish of Fury has almost possibly never felt better, or it could possibly just be more of the same. But Fish of Fury, the Fish of Fillet, it's so good to see that become a build again. I hope there's not feel bads interactions here. Like, I believe everybody should go and really get appraised at what to expect from the different builds of Tau, because unlike a couple of other things, they have the two great options of the Montcar or the Callion. Have we explained this on the show, Paul?
We have. We talked about that.
Yeah.
You pick a philosophy of battle, and you get some bonuses in the first half of the game or the back half of the game, depending on which philosophy you pick. That's summarized.
And my philosophy of the game of 9th edition is that 90% of the time you should take Montcar.
Yeah.
That's my philosophy.
Front load that. Montcar is the early round. Go for it.
Yeah, you front load it. But that's not to say you should always do it. In fact, in the mirror match, Callion is like hands down probably better. Because you're both going to be kind of static, staying back on each other, pinch hitting, and then the person who can make the better late game dash and get those 15s on the 12s now on the primaries is probably going to be the player who wins. And so I think it's actually quite a cool thing to do to pick the Callion into the mirror or into like things like maybe Admech or other big shooty Dakar armies. But I think Tau they've knocked it out of the park. Like, it's a home run. Because the one thing that Tau has always been, to my mind, is they've been linear. It's always been really easy to understand what a Tau army is going to do. Now, I
would like to shoot. I'd like to shoot twice. I'd like to overcharge to maybe shoot a little bit better for the second time.
Yeah. I'd like to overwatch so I can shoot in a different phase of non-shootingness, and I'll shoot then too. That's pretty much been their only modus operandi. And now they want to move up the board. They want to get close to you. They even have units that want to charge you, want to touch you, want to tap you, wrap you, punch you. And they're not going to punch you.
Made a 275 crew list or something.
Dude, that thing is just like, it's actually just good. I love it too. It feels like GSC and Orcs had a baby, and it's the crazy crude chicken list. Like, it's good. But yeah, like one turn of the game, you can make those Kroot feel like Goth boys. Like get them to strength 5 or possibly with +1 to wound as well. Like, you can actually make them pretty awesome too. It's crazy. Vespid might be one of the most improved units we've ever seen. Just put it out there. Crazy.
Yeah, and I haven't heard anyone talk about them, and I wonder if that's because they still have this stigma of being, one of the worst units in the game. I mean,
yeah, and also, put it out there. Not a great kit. Not a great kit. When it came out, it was pretty cute, but now it's not doing so well.
I like them. I should say I think I've always kind of liked the way they looked, but they've always been real standout-ish.
They kind of look like they're like a Jim Henson production or something to me.
Actually.
I don't know if it's just because I started in this hobby a little bit later, so most of the aesthetic has been very different from that. But yeah, they just sort of look a little cartoony to me. But I love that, and that actually suits my playstyle. So I don't know. I think they're charming, but they do look a little odd.
Yes. Well, now they're charming with some great guns.
That gun is incredible.
My husband may have got some coming in the mail for his Tau army. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Tau is an incredible book. There's a lot of jank in that book as well. And when we say jank, maybe Paul, you're incredible at explaining things. How to explain jank to people?
Some tricky stuff, some things that's like, you can punch above your weight for certain periods of time.
I guess I'd say it's some things to mess with your opponent's plans, change what they want to do, force them to make decisions. And Tau never had a huge amount of that, but had some key things. There's now there's a relic they've got. I don't know if we're able to look it up quickly, but you get within 12 inches of a unit and you roll 3d6, and if you're above their leadership, you can do one of 3 things to them. You can halve their move and their charge. And so if people are unaware how that will work, that pretty much means you cannot be charged by that unit if they move 6 inches, because they'll move 3 inches and then they'll have to declare a 9-inch charge, which doubles to 18 inches, e.g. you cannot be done. Or you can remove OBSEC, or you can, I can't remember what the other one was. There's one more. Oh, you can force them to shoot the closest unit. Let me tell you, all 3 of those things, pretty good, man. Pretty good.
Yeah, that sounds like great options all around.
Yeah, stuff like that really makes me excited, because I just think there's like little pieces of jank, little pieces of intriguing play that they have that's going to be quite sexy.
Let me explain that. But why I say that is not just throwaway comment, is that you're taking away a unit's ability to really meaningfully interact with the game for an entire turn. And so 20% of whatever their opponent expected to get out of that unit is gone.
Yeah. In addition, I mean, there are some mainstay units that have like never left being good for Tau. I can't remember an edition where broadsides weren't. I mean, maybe third and fourth.
It looks like the weapon loadout's a little bit like, I think the rail cannon and missiles are probably the way to go instead of all missiles.
And spot on. I mean, I think the missiles may come back into vogue if GW ever decides to stop giving -1 damage to everything. The missiles will become good. But as it sits right now, I think the heavy rails is definitely the way to go.
Yeah.
And crisis suits feel incredible again. Yeah,
I think the broadside point wise too, like what you get for that unit in points is a really good exchange.
It's 90 points. And here's the crazy thing about them: they've got the infantry keyword, which is the make or break to me for that kind of a unit. You either have to have fly, like a Talos does, to be able to negotiate terrain, and if you push up the board, if you're going to be an aggressive kind of, we will call this a bully unit, a unit that you have to kind of account for when you're either building your list or playing into an army. You have to be conscious of these things like these bully units that are just going to force you to have to deal with them by, just being driven down your throat. This is an opposite of a bully unit. So this is the kind of the inverse, the one that sits at the back of the table that can be hidden very easily because it's got infantry. You can put it on the other side of the wall and just walk through at your leisure. And they can still shoot things like SMS
from. Probably walk back through the.
Yeah, but they've got 8 wounds, and to my mind, I can't think of another infantry model, non-character infantry model in the game that has 8 wounds. There might be one of the most efficient infantry models that we've ever seen. It's 90 points for the loadout we've talked about, the one with what you mentioned, Paul, the heavy rail rifle and the 2 SMS systems. And I think that's an incredibly good value purchase. 90 points, I think, could be maybe too cheap when it's all said and done.
Yeah, so that, maybe a little forward presence, maybe a little skirting around the side with some Vespids, some Devilfish with some Fire Wars inside. I mean,
look,
what long-time Tau player doesn't have that on a shelf right now?
That's what I mean. But that's the thing. You can play whatever you want. I've got a mate who lives in the old town. He's living Ballarat, who has an entire Kroot army, beautifully converted entire Kroot army. He may not be able to play his Forge World units, which is his Narlocs and stuff, his big old dinosaur chickens. Who knows? Maybe he'll be able to model some Exodites on their backs one day. But he can play that army. That army's they've even got some Warlord traits just for Kroot shapers. It's cool. This is a great codex.
I'm digging it. Let's change gears a bit so we hit all 3 of the factions with Genestealer cults. It is the best Genestealer cult list sprinkled in with a little Forces of the Hive Mind type situation, or can it stand on its own?
100% it can stand on its own. I want to give a chance for the other guys to chime in if they think if they want to speak to this. But 100% it can stand on its own. The issue is, I think, as long as Hive Guard and no line of sight shooting is just so good, it's actually just going to be better than having Crossfire. So
and while you can take it, you might as well be taking it.
Well, we've got the GW announced the Tyranid Codex is just on the horizon, isn't it? It's the one following the Eldar /Harlequin /Ynnari /
it's going to be a big book, man.
Pirate Eldar. It's going to be a big book, and that's just on the other side of that.
I just want to put this out as a point of record that I've always enjoyed my Craft World collection.
Almost as much as your Blood Angels, right?
It's pretty close. I started with Eldar. That was my first army. Well, Howard Harlequins, but I feel like I'm prefacing too much.
So I think right now it is, but there's the assumption is that when we've seen wholesale removal of the fights twice and moves twice, the shoots twice stratagems from wholesale armies, that they've been given to specific units instead. There are only certain units in an army that can shoot twice, fight twice, or even possibly move twice. And so the assumption is that when the new Tyranid Codex drops, units like Hive Guard won't be able to do all these things, e.g. won't be worth losing Crossfire for anymore. And then I believe we'll see many more. Well, it's probably the best list with GSC will be mono GSC, because there won't just be so much to gain by giving it up.
Yeah, fair enough. I think we're also going to see more and more people as they get more Jackals ready to go.
I tell you what, I talked about it before, but yeah, the crossfire thing is awesome. The tactics that are involved, but I think that there's something of, the army wants to be one way, but you kind of want to play it the other, right? I think that there's something to the balance in this army specifically between shooting and melee, but I think it has so much opportunity to it, and the jackals are. I really want to take the army and mod the ever living life out of it. Because I think that there's just so much to be done, bikes and everything else. This kind of nomadic approach to it, it's awesome, and it should not be left to the wayside. I totally think it could stand on its own, but I absolutely think that when the rest of the hive mind catches up with them, they're going to have just that much more working out for them.
Yeah, I agree. I think the best build right now is just because there's so much extra to be gained there, but 100% they can stand on their own 2 feet. In fact, there's so many like relatively good builds that people are answering some questions because people think the GSC versus Tau matchup is going to be a hard one for both parties. Like that, actually, it's a really intriguing matchup. Like Paul, me and you would love to call this one day. Who's got the upper hand?
The chess.
The chess match between the two. And so I love it. I think it's crazy cool. And
well, I think let's talk about that for a second, and we can debate what balance actually is. But I believe that the Gene Stealer cult seems to function better, and we actually kind of saw this play out a little bit in Alex Madugal's list from the LVO. Is that a more balanced list seems to get you through more situations, i.e., win more games?
Yeah. And I think that's.
Well, what does that mean? What is
well,
what is the combination between shooting and we can talk. Take Tyranids out of the equation or whatever. Like, what is the balance between shooting units and close combat units and tricksy unit bouncing units that you want to have in the Gene Stealer cults? And I think that's what's going to players have to figure out if they're going to shoot for those top brackets.
So I know one of the great things GW did with the GSC Codex was that they made the shooting relevant. The only real shooting you got in that list previously was when you wanted to have a really skewed list and take like a bunch of Ridge Runners, possibly
47 Ridge Runners.
Yeah.
Which look cool, by the way.
It looks amazing. They're like what I wish Taurox Primes looked like, to be honest. But I think the questions that need to ask themselves is what are the screens you need to clear? Because still the primary damage dealing you have is melee. So you need to take enough shooting to make sure you get to use your melee assets. And that's how I think I would look at it. But there are some amazing things. Like, did you guys know there's the Pauper Princes? I can't remember if it's a ward or a relic that just gives an aura of 5-up feel no pain. So 5-up invulnerable save. Just a 5-up invuln to any.
I actually did know that.
It's amazing. Yeah.
Yes, I did, because I had to fight against that last Saturday.
Well, and if people are wondering about that Tau matchup, like, because generally speaking, if a Tau model shoots at a GSC model, you ain't getting no save. There's just no save. Do not apply. But you can go from no save to just having a third of all damage being stopped by that invulnerable. And so just things like that. I am so excited to get a guard book on these kind of build parameters because everything just seems so well fleshed out. Everything seems exciting and dynamic, and there's so many more than one ways to use everything. Sorry if I'm just gushing right now because I like this. This design philosophy is great.
From the limited experience that I have playing against Gene Stealer Cult, I think that the faction the army that you're creating can be surprisingly tough. Because characters can like shrug off wounds to like little Greeblies. Like that's an amazing mechanic. And also the Icon Ward can bring back bikes, but it can also bring back a quad. Mm-hmm. And that's annoying to deal with. I don't know if you guys have had to fight any list that has an Icon Ward that's like bringing back these models from this unit. It is so hard to chew through these bike units.
I haven't fought them, Tanya, but I've definitely seen Space Marine bikes and ATVs come back, so I can only imagine it's not too far removed.
Yeah, that was the most surprising thing for me playing against Alex's pure Gene Stealer cult list was just like how durable, like surprisingly durable, everything seemed to be.
Yeah, nice game. We can't hate that. I mean, for something that is not historically thought of as very durable, you just got to chew through the masses.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm digging it.
Do you want to do the same for Custodes?
Yeah.
Let's
Quick if we can quickly, and well, that'll close out the show as a Custodes, and we saw several different Custodes builds doing really well, and it seems like though that the ones that are rising to the highest peaks are like single Alaris Terminators running around.
Okay. So people who are maybe unaware, Alaris Terminators being the one of the most beautiful kits, the most beautiful and special and wonderful kits G-Dub's ever produced in plastic. They are just gorgeously built models. They look phenomenal. Everything's great about them. But you can take them in units of 1 now, and I think they're 60 or 65 points. They might have gone down to 60 points with the field manual changes.
Yeah.
To all intents and purposes, you're buying yourself a Space Marine Terminator captain, like for 60 points. He doesn't buff anybody, but he's got a standing 2-up, 4-up, 2-up armor.
He debuffs people by beating them about the face and neck with his.
Yep. And he can just, he's obsec and counts as 2 models. He holds down holds down a backfield objective for you for 60 points. He can't get removed by just old anything, and like he's great for doing a bunch of different secondaries for you. Admittedly, he's not as good as doing the engage or the retrieve Knockman data anymore, because you need a certain sized unit. Needs to have a troop battlefield role. But he is incredibly good at helping you play the primary, being a disruption unit. And let's say I have a unit of 2 multi-melter attack bikes. Yeah, let's say I'll just go 2 multi-melter attack bikes. I shoot at this guy. I'm going to hit him on 3s with 4 shots. Yeah, so I'm going to hit him, let's say, 3 times, and then you've got an applicable CP you can drop if you want to make this guy be transhuman, as in he can only be wounded on a 4+. Let's say you do that. All of a sudden, those 3 hits, let's say I get the better of the average, and I've got 2 wounds through. That guy's then got a 4-up invulnerable save. It could just spike, and I've just wasted over 120 points to not kill a 60-point unit. Like, that kind of stuff happens with these guys. And when you take the single units off them, like 1 or 2 singles, you just expose yourself to so much variance that they can just fall over to a unfortunate couple of rolls.
Bolters, las guns.
Or they can just refuse to die for 5 turns in a row.
Well, what I like is you can have so many of them. You can have, several of them running around, 3 of them running around.
Well, and of course, they've still got Unleashed Alliance, which is a 2 CP stratagem that a unit of Alaris split into singles. So technically, you could take 3 units of 3, and over the course of the game... I can't remember if you can only use... Lions once per game. Yeah, so you could have 2 singles and a unit of 3, split the 3, and you got 5 singles. And let me tell you, it's very frustrating.
It seems good, but these are things scoring objectives. Those are things that are denying objectives potentially for your opponent. There are things that could be in areas of the board that are difficult. You could do all when you have lots of options for not a lot of point investment, and they're cool looking models, and all those advantages.
Well, we should talk about some of the Forge World units as well, because Custodes has long been an army that had half of its model range from Forge World. A bunch of their Terminators. Another unit of Terminators, another unit of bikes. They've got the Venatari, the Bird Boys from Flash Gordon. And they're from Flash Gordon. You can't hate that. And they've just gotten their keywords updated, so now they benefit fully from all the rules in the new book. So definitely keep an eye out for those guys, and if you have some, chuck them down, see how they go. They've got a whole new lease on life as well.
That was an interesting thing, because you can't assume that once a new book comes out that they'll get the keywords kind of thing. And that was a nice thing to wake up to.
It was a big deal, and very important, especially for things like Sagittarium. They were pretty much already good enough to take, and now they certainly make the cut as an alternative troops choice. But yeah, what you said at the start, Paul, I don't know if you guys, Tanya, if you got an insight into this. It seems to be like there's 3 legitimate shield host builds, 3 legitimate different ways to play Custodes, which just goes another testament to how well fleshed out these books are. There's the Solar Watch infantry build, which is pretty much just having infantry that should not. These golden boys should not move this fast. They are too big to move this fast.
This is the build that I like, by the way.
Yeah. Why do you like it? Tell us about it.
I like the kata. That's their kata, right? The roll 2 dice and then pick the highest for the advance.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just I feel like for the points investment, I get more out of infantry as opposed to bikes. It also plays more into my more defensive playstyle. I can hide infantry units a lot better. So having that ability to maneuver in the first turn, these Solar Watch foot slogging dudes, I don't know, it just really suits my playstyle and I just really vibe with it. And then usually first or second turn, I'll make sure that they get both of the kata stances because they can, and then I can advance and still shoot. And I just find that it's pretty powerful, actually.
Nice, because it's for people who maybe need a frame of reference. It's essentially turning custodians into white scars to all intents and purposes. Because you got an advance and charge option, you got some extra rolls to your advances, canticles and litanies you'd get from a chaplain. And it makes it usually a foot slogging kind of slow ponderous army into something really dynamic. And then you have the Shadow Keepers, which this is the merely grindy bully. They've still got that beautiful strat for -1 to the strength of attacks incoming, which can no longer be used on things like Telemons anymore, so it's not that abusable. But it's still very powerful. They got -1 attack when you're in combat with them, and I just want to point out, like, -1 attack is possibly one of the most powerful things that we haven't seen used very often.
Just
This is
cuts the
army-wide.
odds.
Yeah, dude. If you want to talk about like what is this on minuses to hit? Like, maybe Red's got the math, but let's say I'm hitting on 3s, but I got -1 to attack. Is that almost like -2 to hit or -1 to hit innately in all intents and purposes?
No, so it's actually, I mean, because you're cutting out actually the entire. I mean, I'm not going to go hardcore on this, but it is. You're correct in the statement of removing an attack removes so many levels of variation that it would continue to succeed. That it is, I mean, it's just I won't say it equates to an additional -1 to hit or something like that, but it's just that big of a deal and how it reduces it. As we know in playing the game, and especially as you see in a lot of competitive builds, volume is key in a lot of cases. Giving yourself that many more opportunities. That's why rerolls are big. That's why adding dice, so on and so forth, is just such a big aspect. To take one away is crushing.
And in addition, there are so many melee units that are getting used prevalently at the moment that rely on massed weight of dice to get the job done.
That's right.
Gene Stealers, Orc Boys,
Guard.
Witches, Guard. There's so many just rely on the mass rather than the quality. And this just says like, well, I'm going to hit you on your mass, and then you got quality as well. Well, we're going to hit you too. It's quite good. I had a game of Dark Angels, and I was playing a full unit of Dark Angels with Thunderhammers and Storm Shields because I need the saves now. I think the game's getting very deadly, and I ran up into some shadow keepers in combat, and I went from having 3 attacks on the charge to 2 attacks, and then they turned off my rerolls. So then I had 2 attacks per Terminator, hitting on 4s with no rerolls. So each Terminator
50-50.
Hitting nothing but air, man.
10
nothing
hits, 7 wounds.
And they got a 4-up invuln on the other side of it. So it just gets cut in half, gets cut in half again, and it sucked.
Well, I was going to say 7 wounds they could cut down to 5 wounds with a 4-up invul. Like, you basically killed none of them.
Yes, I killed 2 dudes, and then they.
Well, that was lucky. You should have bought a lottery ticket. Also, you should have killed those 2 custodians and then run out and bought a lottery ticket.
And then the third build I want to talk about is Empress Chosen. Now, this seems to be the all-rounder, the one where the 2 we just talked about, the Solar Watch, I believe innately it tells you to play an infantry-heavy army, one that'll take the best use of the advance and charge warlord trait. And then the Shadow Keepers, I think, tells you to play with a lot of dreads, a lot of things that'll get into the middle and just body your opponent, be imposing, be dominating, and or bikes, of course, because bikes are just good in every list. But Empress Chosen seems to be the one where you can kind of just take anything and make it good. And I think that's the one people lean towards the most, but I don't know if it's the best.
I tell you what, I mean, that's what I played against. Yeah. And it was quite good. I mean, it is. You want to talk about some amazing efficiency? The rerolls they have on top of their, the transhuman that's already built in, and I mean, it was massive. It did an amazing job at being extremely efficient. He had a healthy amount of characters, healthy amount of bikes, and then he used a lot of single unit Terminators as his other, backfield.
Hey, we just talked about that.
Yeah, exactly. It's huge, massive.
That's nice. No, I like it. There's, like Adam was saying, there's depth to these books, and you can build different options. And I think that probably the commonality you'll see of the top list is utilizing those single man units. And yeah, I'm curious to see what's working for folks out there. That's our show. I think it's been a dense one. Yeah, if you hung out this long, we thank you and appreciate you. Please leave us a 5-star review.
Hopefully the knowledge dump at the end there was an enjoyable ride. I get a bit into it, guys. If you can tell, a little bit of passion.
Keep
in these rickety knees.
Keep it coming. Well, yeah, seriously, it's been a great conversation. I've enjoyed spending this time with y'all, and I hope people have enjoyed listening to it. Hit us up wherever you can. Love to hear your comments on some of the early part of the segment, and also what's working for you with these armies and what you're looking forward to if you're changing up some of the builds.
Beautiful.
It's been awesome, everybody. See y'all next week.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
I don't know what they said, but I already subscribed. You better do it too.